So my name is Saul David. I am the co-founder. My wife back there, Denise David. She's my partner in crime for this. A lot of people know us from Empire, but not everybody knows that we have a transportation company, which is what DFH Transportation is. We have an asset-based trucking side and a brokerage division that we've been running for the better part of 11 years. So that is our occupation, and Empire Development Group has been our vocation for the better part of the last 2 years. So just kind of wanted to put that out there so you guys know what you're needing. So if you need 53 feet of cargo pushed from here to Detroit or Atlanta or Miami, give us a call. We'll be happy to help you with that. One of the beauties of doing this is that my brother was my partner over there, along with Denise, and it allowed me the opportunity to come over here full time to allow me and Denise to do this while he runs that. So our office is in Saginaw. I've got the same cell number, but a different email address. So if you want to talk to me about that, let me know and I'll be happy to get you connected. So I only say that because I always reference it to transportation. I can't help it because that's what I know. You know, people say, well, what qualifies you to give business advice to me? I'm a florist, I'm a caterer. I said, I don't know what you do, but I know business, and I've had my fair share of challenges from start to finish, just about every aspect of it. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. When I first started, before we opened up the business, my first go at this was as a driver. So I was working at a oil yard as kind of like a yard boy. I was pulling out the drums of oil and pulling back and forth, and they said, well, we don't need that position anymore, so we're gonna have to let you go. I said, well, I need this job. She said, well, we have a driver position if you have a CDL. And I was like, I don't, but I'll get one. And so I remember going to take the test, and I kept failing the test. Every time I took it, I would study and study and study, and I had problems on the same part. And one of the things that I remember was the question that they would ask is it safer for a driver to be pulling a full load or an empty load? And then there was a slew of questions after that. Well, in my mind, I just couldn't fathom that carrying a heavy truck was safer than carrying an empty truck. But a lot of times, it was the weight of that we want to talk about today. And in business, every time that we cover challenges and problems, we're carrying that extra weight. So that's really what I want to talk about today. So there's 3 reasons why it is actually safer to be pulling a loaded truck than an empty truck. The first is that an empty truck is harder to control for a driver. So that means that if a driver zigs a little bit and the whole trailer starts to sway, and it's just a little bit, but the inertia of the trailer ends up making it more and more and more. So because there's no weight in the trailer, it's actually harder for the driver to control. The second thing is that during severe weather, it's really dangerous. There's a lot of drivers that won't drive an empty trailer during what we consider a small windstorm, 20 or 30 miles, because when you have 9 feet high wall that goes 53 feet long, that wind can blow the trailer over really easy. And what happens is if it tilts just a little bit, the weight of the trailer will pull the whole trailer over. And the last thing is, you've all seen a jackknife truck, you know what that is? When they come and the trailer ends up being in front of the truck. And what happens is when they try to make a quick stop, because there's no weight in the back, a lot of times the trailer will lose control of the trailer, and eventually the trailer will end up controlling the truck, not the truck controlling the trailer. So, the reason I say that is because life's no different. The challenges that we get as business owners and that added weight that we have, so many times we look at as a negative, but it's just all about the way that you frame it. And so I'm going to talk to you today about how those challenges in your life and in your business essentially can play a very positive role in your business, just depending on how you look at it. So, I was 17 and I was hanging out with the wrong crowd and the wrong people, and through a slew of bad decisions, I got convicted of a felony. And I remember thinking that everything was going to change, that after hearing what I had to do is that I couldn't party with my friends anymore, I had to take weekly drug tests, and so in my mind I had to pay probation fees, so all these things were going to cause these massive changes in my life. And so to me, there was all this added burden and added weight to my life that I thought was just going to completely ruin who I was. But in hindsight, it was because of those things that really pulled some core qualities out of me that would have never happened without that weight. So because I was taking drug tests every week, it like forced me to get sober because I didn't have the choice. I couldn't party like that anymore. And so since I couldn't be around it, it also changed me. It also forced me to change the kind of people that I hung out with. So my friends from the neighborhood and things like that, like I couldn't be around them because I knew what they did and that was just going to get me in more trouble. So essentially it pulled me from there. And then as a young adult, I was in my first apartment and money was already tight. Now I've got these added probation fees. So it caused me to become more responsible with my finances. And so all these things that happened because of these challenges that came into my life, but really the weight of it was what helped me to get through those tough times. And when I look back at it too, that was really the first step towards rebuilding my faith walk with God, is just going through these different challenges in my life. So one of the scriptures that I love is that we'll no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves blown here and there by every wind of teaching and the cunning craftiness of people. Essentially, I just hear the being blown back and forth. And because just like the empty trailer, my life was really empty. And so because of that, it was hard for me to stay on track. And it was through the hardships of what I went through, that weight and that problem, that really pulled a different part out of me and allowed me to do that. Fast forward a few years, me and Denise, newly married, she had just had Trinity. She was working as a commercial loan officer at Countrywide, making, 3 or 4 times what I was making. And so she was my sugar mama, getting the business going. And so she had the real job, and I started working from our apartment. I was working in the living room, and I remember that being inexperienced, being underfunded, being new to an entrepreneur, I had all these challenges already just trying to get the business going, but I had Denise holding everything down with the money because she was making the real money. But we had just had Trinity, and it was important to her to spend time with her. And because of the hours she was working, it became more and more challenging. And she came to me one night where she said, I can't do this. I don't want to not know my kid. I want to be there, at least in the beginning. So I think I'm going to quit. And I was like, no, you're not. You can't quit. Like, you have to work because we need your real paycheck to give me the time to do what we need to do to get the business going, because it's going to take time. And I just remember how adamant she was about wanting to make this transition. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I've already got to keep the business going, and we're new. I've got to pay for this new baby now, and I got to pay for like all the house bills. Like, how is this all going to, to come together, and how are we going to make this work? Well, to me, when you look at, I had a new baby, a new business, very little money, and a lot of times what happens is when there's multiple things going wrong in your life. How many of you guys have heard people say, I'm going through a storm, like in my life, right? Going through a storm, because that's a very normal way to look at it. And so in my time, this time in my life, I feel like I'm really going through a storm, and how am I going to do this? I want to give Denise what she wants, but I just really don't have the means to do it. And so, and before I wanted to do good, I think like a lot of people, I wanted a nicer car, I wanted a nicer house, I wanted to have nicer clothes, but now, because of what was going on, it was sort of a whole different mindset of why I needed to do well. And what happened was, it caused me to change everything about the way that what I thought was real work. I started putting in 14-hour days. I started making 2 to 3 times as many cold calls as I was making, even as a driven business owner. But like blowing those numbers out of the water. Like every second that I wasn't working and being with the baby, I was reading books and taking classes and workshops on how to run a business, because I had no clue how to do it. And so, going through this whole process, it was the idea of going through these challenges was really pulling things out of me that I wasn't able to do on my own. And again, it's always like hindsight's 20/20, but going through having the added burden of what we were trying to do really started to pull things out that I wouldn't have been able to do without him. And so when I look at the work ethic that I developed through that process, realizing that I wasn't giving 100%, that I could do more if I really wanted to, if I really pulled at it, I could be doing more. And it was the first time that I started doing personal development in my life, which was really transformational from that point till today on how we view business and how we get there. Plus, there was the idea that I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So I told you initially that was sort of my first step towards getting my walk with God right. Well, this was like the meat of it, because I knew that there was no way I was going to be able to do this by myself. So it really stretched my faith. It really grew my prayer life in ways that I can't even imagine doing without it. So we talked about on the trailer being empty, it being hard, and also that when you're going through those storms in an empty trailer, it's easy to tip over. And so at this time in my life, it was the weight of the issues that we were going through that really kept us grounded to be able to get through it. So another scripture that I like here, it says, "Do not be surprised at the ordeals that have come to test you, as if something was strange happening to you, but rejoice inasmuch as you're participating in the suffering of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed when his glory is revealed." So, the idea that we try so much to, I'm not saying dive headfirst into problems, but you should not be surprised when you encounter them. And depending on how you frame it, it can be something that just tears you apart, or you can look at it as the weight that you need to keep you grounded during the storm that you're at. The 2007 probably at that point was our best year. We had landed some contracts with Corona, with Nestle, with Walmart, and coming from the living room in our one-bedroom apartment, that was a really big deal. And so it was, we had 6 employees. I remember we had 3 rigs that were paid off. It was the first year that I think we cracked 6 figures. And I just thought that we were just going to skyrocket and I was going to retire at 32. But long as it took to get there, it crumbled like that. I remember that we had worked to get a contract with a company that got bought out by another company. And that they had sort of their own fleet, their own go-to that they were going to use, and we were just going to get pushed to the side. And I remember at the time being young and eager and thinking, you know what, I know, I've heard how this works, I know that there's ways to fast track this process, so I tried to bribe my way into a contract instead of working for it. And immediately everything fell apart. I sacrificed my integrity and my character, and I just remember it seemed like overnight everything started to fall apart. We lost a contract that was 80% of our revenue in the office. Lost all the employees with the exception of my brother. 2 months later, I had to let him go too. It was a very pride-swallowing process that we were going through. I remember that it wasn't long before all the money that we had made over the years started to dwindle away to where we didn't have anything. I remember pulling TVs off the wall and trips to the pawn shop with jewelry and all the things that we'd accumulated over time making the money just started to vanish so quick, and to the point where we sold our last truck. And we sold it because we had an opportunity to go solicit a big customer down on Laredo. And this was supposed to be our lifeblood. This was our last chance to get in with a real big corporate company. It was going to give us, kind of breathe new life into what we were doing. And I remember Denise and I got down there and we barely had enough gas to get there. And when we went through there and did the pitch, the guy said, "Well, I'm not really interested in doing work with you like that. I really don't have a contract to give you, but I would like to offer you a position as a consultant if you'll stay down here and work with my team, because we don't want to outsource, we want to do what you do in-house." And that wasn't even something that I did at the time, and I was like, absolutely, that's what we do. That's our stuff, you got it. And so and the crazy thing is that the money that it paid was a lot more, it was a lot faster because it was big chunks at once, and it sort of breathed new life into what we were doing. The idea of consulting had never even crossed my mind, but through the success that we had down in Laredo, it opened up doors for companies here in Dallas, for companies in Fort Worth. And so the consulting started to become a very intricate leg of what we were doing. And the money that we made doing the consulting bought us the time to get back on our feet, doing what we were doing. Now, mind you, this whole process fell apart based on a bad decision, sacrificing integrity for money. And so during this process, I remember telling Denise that we were never going to be in this boat again. Like, never again were we going to put the money in front of the type of people that we were, the type of company that we were going to run. We were going to do it based off hard work and customer service, and we were just going to be the best. And it's not that we have not made any mistakes since then or that it's perfect, but that was the bar that we set, and that was sort of the new vision for what we were doing. You know, and we've had that culture at our trucking company ever since. And it's what's allowed us to do what we're doing now. And it was through these ideas and concepts that EDG was born. And so when I look at all the different things that we had gone through and how this came about, you know, how the idea of working with people through Bible-based principles as it pertains to finance and how you treat people and integrity, like, that's what it was. This was our whirlwind story of how it got to that. And just like the trailer that was empty jackknife, I think it was because we were carrying so much during that time that it allowed us to stay in control, to where the trailer didn't take us, you know, that we were able to take control of the situation. So I'll leave you with this. It says that God is faithful and He will not give you more than you can bear. I mean, there's a lot of different variations, but the brunt of it is that's the thing. He won't give you more than you can handle. So if He's giving it to you, I'd like to think it's because we need it at that time in our life, whether we want it or not. Not all challenges in your life are meant to slow you down or even stop you. Much of what you've given to carry is for your own good. And just remember that some added weight can keep you stable. But it's only if you're willing to carry it through. So that's what I've got for you guys today. I appreciate your time. I hope that